Hi, this is Tutor Nick P, and this is Lesson 79. Today we're going to look at the difference between imitate, impersonate, and mimic. All of these have something to do with like copying somebody's behavior, but there are some clear differences the way we may use them, and in which situations we're more likely to use one than the other. So let's look at imitate first. If someone imitates another person or creature, they try to copy the way they speak, move, behave, etc., especially in order to make people laugh. Um, Often imitating is not professional, so it doesn't have to be professional. You know, you might do it yourself. Your friends may do it just as a joke. We imitate somebody or something. All right, and then of course we have a second meaning also, to take or follow as a good example. So let's look at the examples. Here's the first example. James could imitate the voice of his boss perfectly. Yeah, this is probably as a joke. Hopefully he doesn't do it in front of his boss. But of course, it's not professional. He's not being paid for it. So, we use imitate like that. We use imitate all the time. Imitate is probably the most common of these of the three that are listed here. Bob imitated the sound of a howling dog. Yeah, so imitate does not have to be used with a person. It could be used with an animal or a thing. So, like, oh, oh, he imitated a dog. We wouldn't say he impersonated a dog. So definitely we would probably use imitate in this sort of sense. Um, she tried to imitate the music style of her idol. All right, this is like the second meaning. To take or follow as a good example. So we use imitate in that way as well. Okay, and we would not use impersonate in that sort of sense. We wouldn't say she impersonated the style of her idol. We would say she mimicked it. So she just basically copied a similar style. Okay, now let's look at impersonate. Now, when you look at the definitions, some do look quite similar. But again, there are differences. So, to impersonate, to copy someone's look and behavior, to be funny. Again, most of the time they're all funny. Especially professionally. So, impersonate is more likely to be professional, and it's more likely you're going through a lot more effort or a lot more trouble to copy that person exactly. And then there is another second meaning that's used as well, to pretend or act like a certain type of person, especially for fraudulent reasons, like maybe to cheat people or scam someone. So let's look. Let's look at the first one. On many comedy variety shows, comedians will try to impersonate celebrities by wearing makeup, clothes, and copying body language, speech mannerisms, etc., to make people laugh. All right, this is just what I'm saying. Yeah, comedians. We always know there's these late night comedy shows or something, and where especially if they go through a lot of effort, they don't just do a voice. Maybe they do a lot of makeup and they wear wigs and they try to get the mannerisms down, the way they move, more. So a lot more effort is done in it. So for that reason, it's usually more likely to be professional, as opposed to imitate, which is done all the time. Okay, good. So that's there. Um, okay, let's look at the second one. The character played in the movie Catch Me If You Can by Leonardo DiCaprio impersonated pilots, doctors, lawyers, etc. to scam money. Yeah, that was actually supposed to be based on a true story. They made a movie a really long time ago about this as well. But that's what he did. He tried to pretend to be people of a certain profession in order to either get things for free or to somehow get money, get people to give him money or get money from this. So, yeah, so that's the second meaning we use of impersonate too. So impersonate would only be used in that way. So impersonate, professionally copy for jokes or to really try to like scam or cheat people. And we see this in movies too. Some criminals try to impersonate police officers, maybe sometime to trick people to allow them to enter an apartment or something like that, or get somebody to go with them, where they're not really police officers. They're just trying to pretend like they are police officers. So again, this is a way we would use impersonate. Okay, let's look at the last one we're going to look at here today. Mimic also means to copy somebody's behavior and body language, sometimes used in a way without thinking, more like just directly copying. All right, let's look at the first one. Many parrots will just mimic people's voices and sounds. Yeah, we don't think that the parrot is deeply thinking about what he's doing. He's just it's kind of a natural instinct for him to copy. So he's probably not deeply thinking about it. And we do usually use the word mimic with parrots. We don't usually say that parrots impersonate, or not really even imitate either. Mimic is the more common one we would use with a parrot, copying somebody's voice. All right, and number two, we might use mimic in this sense. A professional mime, like the street entertainer, he usually puts the powder on his face, the makeup on his face, and he just copies people that walk by, and he hopes he will get somebody giving him some tips or something like that. So a professional mime will often mimic the movements of passers-by. Yeah, sometimes I've seen this in Paris. I've seen this in a few places where a mime will just go to a park, and as people walk by, he'll choose a person and he'll just copy them. Most people will laugh. Some people get annoyed. Some people run away. But that's kind of more or less, we often use mimic with that. I don't know if he's deeply thinking about it because he's just instinctively, right away, copying them. So I don't know if he's got a lot of time to think. He's just literally copying their movements and copying their body language. All right, so I hope that kind of clarifies it. I mean, there could be some situations. Could you say that an impersonator, somebody like we use impersonates, imitates a celebrity? Yeah, you probably could. So there's a little crossover. But again, imitate does mean to copy somebody, often for jokes, but most of the time it's not professional. And it doesn't even have to be people. It could be animals. Impersonate, when it is copying somebody's behavior, is more likely to be professional. Like on these comedy shows, these really good comedians, and they go through a lot more effort to copy exactly what the person looks like. And then there's also the fraudulent use of impersonate, like somebody's impersonating somebody's profession to trick somebody to get money. And then mimic is more like copying, just kind of automatically copying without too much deep thinking. I hope that kind of clarifies it. Thank you for your time.